Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles. I am C. Hope you are doing well. All right, the Major League Baseball regular season has wrapped up. We are into the playoffs, and they've been pretty enjoyable to this point here. So, coming down to the wire in a couple of these, or one of the contests at least. So, but anyways, it's never too early to start doing some off-season homework. And so this is what I do on an annual basis: is I start to break down players position by position to put together kind of my target list. If I'm going to put decent money into a player, I want to make sure that they're going to have some sort of long-term relevance. And so that can come in a number of different ways. They can be a fan favorite like Bo Jackson or Don Mattingly. They can be a little bit on the notorious side, Pete Rose, a lot of the PED guys, for example, or players that are on a Hall of Fame track. I think there's always relevance to those players. There's varying degrees of relevance, of course, but there's always going to be demand for those players. And so what I try and do is identify who may be on that track. So again, looking at position, looking at historical data, who's in the Hall of Fame, what did they need to do to get into the Major League Baseball Hall, and see who today might be on that path. And so I'm happy to share my research with you today. We'll kind of do this together here and see what we see. So pitchers for the long term. My primary metric, or at least my starting metric, is wins above replacement or WAR. And so I think many people are familiar with that, but here's a quick synopsis of it. Pitchers a little different than hitters, a few different inputs. Really what WAR is telling you is consistency and longevity. Those are two of the things you need to have when playing a sport. To get into the hall. So it's not like it's the only thing. You know, there's other things in terms of awards, postseason play. There's a number of players that get in because they're well liked, and that never hurts things at all. So, but I think it's a good starting point. It encompasses a lot of the metrics that we're looking for. It's not perfect by any stretch. But again, it's a good starting point. And again, I think if you just look at it from a context of someone with a high enough wins above replacement, really just means that they've been around for a while and they performed at a high level. I think it starts to make sense that it can be a little bit more accepting. So you'll find this with pitchers. People say WAR doesn't matter, and I think it does. You don't have any pitchers too far below 60 wins above replacement that are in the Hall of Fame, at least in the last 30, I guess 40 years now. So 1980 is what I'm looking at. We'll get into that in a minute here. So if you look at wins above replacement since 1884, it's really kind of vacillated between your best player in a given year between 8 and 12. You had Babe Ruth with a pretty high outlier back in the day, and Freddie Freeman with a little bit lower WAR. I think that's actually kind of dropped off here. I think I took that one out because it was a shortened season. But you can see wins above replacement has been fairly consistent. However, under the hood, what we want to see is, again, what do those replacement players look like? And so is it fair to make comparisons across generations? I don't think it is. Charlie Blackmon was your replacement level player a couple of years ago with a 733 OPS and 16 home runs. Aramis Ramirez in 2010, 746 OPS with 25 home runs. Go back 100 years, and we're looking at Patsy Garrity with a 629 OPS with 3 home runs. So the replacement level type player has gotten a lot better. So it's not fair to make comparisons to players that maybe put up, Babe Ruth with 160 wins above replacement. I mean, he was absolutely smoking these lesser players. How would he do today? Kind of an interesting question here. So we want to compare guys to their peers for the most part. So for that reason, again, I've excluded a lot of pitchers from the Hall analysis. Altogether, there's 87 pitchers in the Hall. The most wins belongs to Cy Young with 511. Nolan Ryan has the most strikeouts with 57. 14 most shutouts. Walter Big Train Johnson with 110. 23 pitchers are in the 300 win club, and 14 pitchers are in the 3,000 strikeout club. Now, what we're going to look at are the 19 pitchers who have been inducted by the Baseball Writers Association since 1980. Again, this is more of a relevant comparison, I think. A lot of the pitchers back in the day, they didn't have the modern analytics, for better or for worse. And so you had pitchers with, 30 and 40 wins above replacement getting in. And it's maybe not a fair comp because that opens the door to a lot of players who are maybe Hall of very good type players. So the highest wins above replacement in those players belongs to Greg Max with 116. The fewest WAR is 56 by Jim Palmer. He had 3 Cy Young awards, and so there's your tiebreaker. I think there's where you have some latitude with pitchers. WAR, again, I think is your starting point, but then you start to factor in awards, things of that nature, and you can make the leap for some players if they need it, if they're a bit of a tiebreaker. So the earliest start was Don Drysdale, Jim Palmer, Nolan Ryan, and Burt Blyleven at age 19. The latest start is Mr. Necro at age 25. And so when you're looking for players, you want to make sure that they get an early start and they're producing early on a relative basis. And so what we can see by age, pitchers kind of peak at age 25 and they continue that up until age 34, 35. And so that's what we're looking for right here. Can you get to a certain level? And we're calling it 65 wins above replacement by age 35, and then have that kind of that gradual decline. If you're on that track, you're pretty solid. You have a pretty solid Hall of Fame case. Now there's exceptions, of course. If you're above the line, this is again the cumulative data for those 19 pitchers. And again, we're looking for about 65 wins above replacement around age 35 before we start to get into that decline phase. And pitchers will go for a while, and they'll still continue to add wins above replacement in that decline phase. They'll still be a serviceable pitcher. But we want to do so. But we do want to set the bar just a little bit high here. Tom Glavine, he tracked for a while, fell off the pace, but he's still a Hall of Famer. He had a couple Cy Young Awards, 10 All-Star games. Very, very solid pitcher. Very excellent pitcher. More than solid. And so again, if you're tracking the line, you're really on a really terrific path. If you're above the line, you're on a generational type path. We've got one of those. But just really being close. So if we're off the path a little bit, we want to at least track it for a while and see if they can hang on here. So a number of players are just kind of getting started. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on them, but you can see that they have the appropriate age. They've got some Fangraphs WAR under their belt. And what is the average Hall of Famer? Where are they at? Where were they at a similar age? And so if you look at George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Shane McClanahan, they're off the pace, and that's all right. They have time to make up for it, but they do need to start getting it into gear, because this is when you start to see that higher level of production. Justin Steele got his start over the last couple of years, but he's a little bit older, puts him farther off the track. Probably wouldn't be a serious target. None of these guys would be a very high level target in my book until they prove a little bit more, unless the price is right. So that's the ultimate arbiter there. So a couple of players that are coming up for the Hall of Fame vote this year: Bartolo Colon, 247 wins, 2,500 strikeouts, 51 wins above replacement. He does have a Cy Young Award, which could be a bit of a tiebreaker. It's unlikely that he gets in, but you can never mention Big Sexy enough in any pitching video. So he does have a very memorable home run to his name as well. K-Rod on the ballot last year, didn't do too well, but he does have the fourth most saves all time. He has the single season save record. And if you look at him a little bit closer, the only three player in total saves that are ahead of him are in the Hall of Fame. I think Billy Wagner probably gets in sooner rather than later. And Craig Kimbrell and Kenley Jansen are two players that will get a little bit of love here. And I think K-Rod fits in pretty well with them. So I wonder if the voters are not... They're disregarding longevity. They're disregarding his peak in terms of maybe not the most long career or anything like that. So I wonder what goes through their mind on that one here. So a few players that are kind of falling off the track a little bit. So we're going to lighten the load on them. Julio Urias, 26. He actually profiles better than a lot of players on this list. 60 wins. He's got 14 wins above replacement. Average Hall of Famer at 26 has 20.95. And so that's a pretty decent track, actually. But what is required of him during these peak years? He needs to average around 5 wins above replacement over the next decade to really get to that 65. And he hasn't put that up in a single season. So I think asking him to average 4 or 5 wins over the next decade when he hasn't really done it in a single year, probably a bit too much. So he can get back on the track by stepping up and meeting those numbers. But again, if he hasn't done it, then it's unlikely that he will do it over the next 10 years. And so removing him from coverage, a couple other players due to coming up late, injuries, things of that nature, starting to fall off the track. They're just a little bit too far behind. So this can change again with a number of awards. But until they do that, they're a little bit off the list here. So I think I wanted to go back one more. Whatever. It couldn't have been that important. I thought I had one more data point here, but maybe it's coming up in a little. Nope, it's coming up in a little bit. I apologize for the interlude here. So anyways, let's get started with some higher level targets, and that's Corbin. Start off with Corbin Burns. This is in kind of declining order, or ascending order, as you want to put it, so from least likely to most likely. Corbin Burns, 27 years old, 3.21 ERA, average Hall of Famer at his age, 26 wins above replacement. He has 14.3. So again, we can stay below the line and still be kind of relevant as long as we have awards. And he does have that. He's got an NL Cy Young Award a couple of years ago, a couple of All-Star games. So if he can, back half of the season, he kind of found his mojo. and see if he can keep it up and stay relevant, to stay close to that line over a period of time. Maybe add another one of those, and that would make a very good case for Corbin Burnes. And so, again, a perceived off season. That second half again was good. Maybe it's time to take a closer look at some of his stuff. Dylan Cease, later start here, but a terrific season last year. Another pretty good season this year. He walks guys too much, but he's got a sub-4 ERA. He's about halfway to where a Hall of Famer would be at his current age of 27 here, and he's got a top 5 Cy Young award coming last year. So if he can if he can lower that walk rate, keep the strikeouts going, and track, and then maybe pick up a little bit of hardware, there's a case to be made for him over a period of time here. So Pablo Lopez, terrific season for the Twins this year, and he's really starting to accelerate, which is nice to see here. Just 27 years old, 40 wins, sub-4 ERA. Again, kind of that halfway point between where a Hall of Famer is at here. But again, he's tracking on the underside of these. So again, these would be players that, absent a lot of hardware, they would be kind of your lower level Hall of Famers. And so pick your spots on when you want to buy those or anything like that. He's got an All-Star game to his name here. So if he has another couple seasons like he's doing here, he can really kind of close the gap on that line, throw in some hardware. And again, there's a case to be made. And that's why you have to do this stuff on an annual basis, just to kind of track these guys. Zach Gallen, a couple of terrific seasons here. So again, a little bit later, a little bit slower start than you would like. But he's got a top 5 Cy Young award finish, an All-Star game. He needs to average about 6.5 wins above replacement over the next 8 years to get to that 65 by 35. But again, you don't have to get to that number. You still have that decline phase where you can put up some wins there. So 40 wins, and that pace is halfway there. So strikeouts. Should add a strikeout tracker here, see what it takes to get him to 3,000. So, but maybe that'll be it for a next year thing here. But anyways, tracking on the underside here, some hardware would certainly help him. Shane Bieber, off to a rocket start in his career, but a little bit injured this past season here. So needs to average just under 6 wins above replacement for the next 8 or 9 years to get to that 65 by age 35. 3 or just over 3 ERA, really terrific pitcher here. So he's not too far off the pace. You can see he was tracking really, really well with some of the big time names, and now he's starting to fall off that a little bit. But if he can get returned to health and start putting up those wins, he could track very well. He does have a Cy Young award. Another one of those would be a big deal here. Pitching triple crown, a couple of top 5 Cy Young finishes, and a couple of All-Star games. So a little bit higher level target than some of those other players. Sandy Alcantara hurt this year, and so that didn't help. Monster year last year, really getting him into the chase there. So he does have the Cy Young award. Needs to average a little over 6 wins on an annual basis over the next 8 or 9 years to get to that 65 by 35. So again, tracking on the underside. So it probably takes some hardware, and he's got one. So to really make that name. So again, we'll monitor him, but again, a little bit better position than some of the others. All right, kind of a dark horse here. Off to a really, really nice start in his career. So no awards to speak of. He's on the Giants, so I don't know how much hardware he'll get. Excuse me, but Logan Webb, 26 years old, needs to average 5.5 wins coming into his peak here on an annual basis. And so he doesn't walk a whole lot of guys. He doesn't strike out a ton, but he doesn't walk. And that'll keep you in the game and let you hang around for quite a long time if you do that. And he's tracking very, very, very nicely here. So again, if you track really, really nicely without awards, I mean, that could leave you out. I mean, look at players like that are recent inductees. I think Jim Catt, he had to go through the Veterans Committee. And I mean, that was a guy with 75 wins of replacement. You could certainly be left to the wayside. This isn't the end all be all or anything like that. But for now, it's like he's certainly doing what he can do. Some awards will really bring that recognition to light here, but he's on a better track than most of these players. And of the younger players, the best track is Spencer Strider's 24 years old. Needs to average just under 5 wins per season over the next decade, 11 years, 10 or 11 years, to get to that 65 by 35. And so he's going to All-Star game. He's going to finish in the top 5 of Cy Young this year. I think Blake Snell will get the award here, but he certainly has a case. Under the hood, he should have it, but I'm not a voter, so his WAR compared to the average, quote unquote, average Hall of Famer is right in line. And so no question that he's pretty good, and the numbers lay it out. He's on track better than almost all the younger players. And so we've got a few players that are on a better track here, but they're kind of in. So for the players that aren't, that's how it goes. All right, Garrett Cole, he's going to wind up with the Cy Young Award, which is huge. That's going to be a big deal. He's below the line of the average Hall of Famer. But again, we know that that's fine. There's players, it's an average, so there's players that are above the line. There are players that are below the line, and so he's trending just below that. So he could be one of your lower level Hall of Famers, but you know what to call a lower level Hall of Famer? A Hall of Famer. So 31 years old, so he needs to average 6-7 WAR over the next few years to get to 35. If he drags us out to 8 pitches till 37, 38, which is kind of what we see out of those guys, then he should easily exceed that. See that 60 number. So 130 wins, 1,900 strikeouts. Again, you go for another 5-6 years. He's going to start to approach 3,000 strikeouts with 38 wins above replacement. Hall of Famer's at 49. So again, not too far off the track, but far enough off the track. But he's going to add a Cy Young here. So he's got top 5 finishes. He's going to add another top 5 finish. He's going to add a Cy Young award, and that will really help him. So if you're beneath the line, that's totally fine. With hardware, that's not a big deal, and he's gonna wind up with that. So Aaron Nola, another one, 29 years old, needs to average just under 6 per year to get to that 65 by 35. So he's got 30 wins above replacement. Average Hall of Famer is about a year ahead of him, so he's not too far off the line. He's typically a top 10 type pitcher in the National League. Some hardware and some recognition would help him quite a bit here. So see if he can pull some of that off in the next few years here. But he's doing what he needs to do. And so again, if you're trending below the line, that doesn't mean you're out by any stretch here. But some hardware would be really helpful to get those votes, and so he may be something that's a down. He might get his recognition may be delayed. We'll see, but I sure like watching him here. So here's the thing I was alluding to earlier about players with multiple Cy Young awards. Just forgot it was in the later slide here. So anyways, Jacob deGrom, I don't know. So 35 years old, 42 wins to his name. 42 wins above replacement to his name, 84 actual wins to his name, 1,600 strikeouts. He's got a couple of Cy Young awards. So there's people that will make the case that because he has a couple of Cy Young awards, he should maybe be in. It's like, well, that's not always the case here. He's top 10 Cy Young all the time, and a couple MVPs, top 10 MVPs, 4 All-Star games. There's other players with 2 Cy Young awards that are not in the Major League Hall of Fame. So Denny McLain is one. He was on the ballot 3 times, and then he got booted. Brett Saberhagen, Johan Santana, Tim Lincecum. Remember back in the day, these guys were winning, especially Santana and Lincecum. I remember quite well. Lincecum had some back-to-back. Santana. These were the most dominant pitchers, and these were no doubters, but injuries and longevity just weren't with them, and they didn't make it. And I think deGrom is on that similar path. And so just because you're winning a bunch of Cy Young and you're dominant, you do have to do it for a long period of time. And that's where I think WAR does play a part here. Again, you're looking for not only dominance, but longevity, and you compile that over a period of time. He's just not able to do that and stay healthy. So 35 years old, maybe he can find the fountain of youth for the next 3-4 years. And put up some empathy stats a little bit. I think that's a little bit irrelevant. It's not as heavily weighted as it was at one point here, but the strikeouts, I think that matters. I think the WAR matters. And so now if he gets to 3 Cy Young awards, you're talking about anybody with that number is in. unless you're named Roger Clemens, who is not in for other reasons here. But Blake Snell is going to fall into this category. Corey Kluber is going to fall into this category. They're going to have a couple of Cy Youngs and probably not make the Hall of Fame. So there's terrific players that have incredible peaks that don't make it. And I don't know that deGrom is the one that bucks that trend, but if he does, watch out. There's cases for a lot of guys here. So, all right, these last 4 players are kind of your guys that are in. All right, Zach Greinke, 39 years old, approaching 3,000 strikeouts, 66 wins above replacement. He's got a Cy Young. He's in the top 5 3 times, 6 All-Star games. Again, below the line, but with the hardware, with the 3,000 strikeouts, that should be enough to put him in. Max Scherzer, past 3,000 strikeouts this year, 3 Cy Youngs. 8 times in the top 5, 8 All-Star games, 72 wins above replacement. So that is another player that is right on the line with the average Hall of Famer. So it'd be a little bit higher level Hall of Famer here. Don Sutton type, and he is in. So Justin Verlander, another one that's tracked beautifully. He's got an actual MVP, 3 Cy Young awards, 9 top 5s, 3,000 strikeouts, 9 All-Star games, partridge in a pear tree, whatever. He is on the line, and he's got the hardware, and that is a very nice Hall of Famer and your highest level generational type Hall of Famer. We'll finish it up with Clayton Kershaw. Approaching 3,000 strikeouts, should get that MVP, 3 top 5, 3 Cy Youngs, 7 top 5s, 10 All-Star games, Gold Glove, above the line. This is your generational Pedro, Randy Johnson, type player here. So that is what your no doubters look like. So the guys on the line, all well and good. Below the line, a little bit lower level. Above the line, this is where you see in his card prices why he's at a premium, because, well, there it is right there. He's a generational type player. Good one to finish on. Thank you very much for watching. Look forward to putting out some more for each position. We'll have more of those videos, so pay attention for those. Like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you, and have a great rest of the day. Bye.